What's up, everybody? Tony Cutillo right here on the Tony Cutillo Show. Make sure you like and subscribe, like we say every single night, as we building, baby. We are building, and I'll tell you who is building right now. A lot of NFL freaking teams. They're building in a different direction. Building in a different direction, man. Let's hear about it, man. Who has shocked you? I think everybody's talking about my man, Mr. Harbaugh, man. John Harbaugh, the Baltimore Ravens just shows you the side of the business that we all talk about, that we all see, that you just never know. You just never know. I think this is a very interesting one, though. And a lot of people, again, who are in Philadelphia, remember this with Big Red, with Andy Reid. But the thing is, with Andy Reid, it was like he lost a team, right? With Andy Reid, it was he lost a team. And he never won the big game. John Harbaugh won a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh won a chip, right? He won a chip. Dealt with a lot of adversities, a lot of underlining things. Looks like they wanted him to make changes, and he stayed loyal to his staff. Listen, it's all speculation, right? It's all speculation. One thing for sure, though, one thing for sure, NFL teams are looking at John Harbaugh. And why not? Even NFL teams that don't even have a vacancy, that they looks like they will create a vacancy in order just to make room for John Harbaugh. I love it. I love it. And we're going to get into all the people that were fired. We're going to talk about who we think should have deserved to go, who deserved to stay, who's going to get the head coach gig, who's got to rebuild themselves as a coordinator role, right? But right off the bat, let's just stick to John Harbaugh for a second, because the John Harbaugh story to me is fascinating, because we all know this was the special teams coordinator in Philadelphia. Right? You talk about a guy who went in and just kicked ass and took names in an interview and said, "I'm your guy," as a special teams coordinator, to elevate himself to head coach, and then had the success over the 18 seasons that he had in one place is, listen, nothing short of amazing. Okay? Nothing short of amazing. Let's look at his resume of 193 and 124. That includes the playoffs. Now, let's read on Yahoo Sports. I got a really good article. It breaks out all the coaches. So again, I like it, right? It's something that we could talk about because it's a lot of good information, right? A lot of good information. Story on Yahoo News right now. So if you look at John Harbaugh, why was he fired? They say, okay, the Ravens were surprisingly mediocre this season. I don't know about that. Surprisingly, I mean, you're talking about a team. Yeah, if you came into this season and you didn't expect anything to happen, meaning you didn't lose your starting quarterback for half the friggin' year, right? Their defense was bad and outright bad and incompetent. They say some of Harbaugh's in-game decisions have drawn scrutiny. I mean, that statement's interesting to me, because don't you deserve a mulligan a little bit? Don't you deserve kind of the credence of a head coach that has a winning record, that has a Super Bowl, that when things aren't going your way, you're trying to not reinvent the wheel, but maybe insert some enthusiasm into the team, maybe try to get them to think a little differently, right? That's just what I look at. So right away that we're just going to nail him to the cross because of that specific thing, it's ridiculous. It says Harbaugh has failed to get back to the Super Bowl with a two-time MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and there have been a general sense that a breath of fresh air at head coach might be good for the Ravens. I listen, like I said, go back to the beginning of this show. We talked about Andy Reid in Philadelphia, right? We knew it was time. But again, Andy Reid didn't win the big game. That was the issue. It was, can he stay and win the big game? If he can't, it's time to move on. And I don't think it was a week, right? I don't think it was a week that a Hunt family was like, yo, guess what? We want Big Red. And he was up on stage at Arrowhead. He was getting the deal. And I expect the same thing as John Harbaugh. My man David checking in. What's up, David? David says, where is John Harbaugh going to be head coach? You know what? I wish I could tell you, man. I wish I could tell you. I mean, I think there's obviously look, you look at the teams out there, you got Vegas, right? Again, you insert Tom Brady a little bit, right? You have the Falcons. It looks like you're inserting Matt Ryan, right? You have the Browns. I think Harbaugh would be an absolute crazy son of a bitch if he went to the Browns. Just knowing how dysfunctional that ownership is, knowing how you just can't win out there. Okay, maybe the allure of a Shador Sanders, trying to rebuild him, not trying to compare him, but he is a mobile, soft quarterback. He does have sort of that moxie about him. But on the other end, if people are thinking that there was some dissension between him and Lamar Jackson because of some of Lamar Jackson's issues that were documented, maybe he doesn't want to go through that again. I don't know, but I would be very remiss if he went to a team that has known issues within the front office and when it comes to leadership, and a supporting owner that gives him the opportunity to be him. Because if he left, or I should say, listen, he basically punched his ticket supposedly when he didn't want to get rid of Tom Monken as the offensive coordinator. That's what the reports are. If that's the case, that means he wants to be in charge. He wants to pull the tickets. And I don't think he's going to go somewhere with an owner that doesn't allow him to do that. So I don't see that. I don't see the Browns, being the thing. I'll tell you what, I think personally, the two teams, and again, this is just my own take. The two teams that I think are extremely intriguing for John Harbaugh if he wants to go in right now. These are openings, okay? These are openings. I'm not saying teams that are trying to create openings for Harbaugh, but teams that have openings, I think the Titans and the Giants. He's very familiar with the NFC East, right? You have a kid in Jackson Dart that I think, and a lot of people think you could build a team around. For the most part, you have an ownership that is giving you a willingness to try to win. And then again, you look at the other end of the spectrum, right? Look at the other end of the spectrum, and they have a really, really good and underrated defense, a young, hungry, and underrated defense. So I think that John Harbaugh can look at that and say, you know what? This could be the next Ravens, right? In his mind, this could be the next Ravens. And then you go out there in Tennessee and you say, listen, not as good of a defense, but again, you got the number one overall pick in Cam Ward, another quarterback who it looks like he has the arm of a champion. He has the knowledge and the instincts. He just needs the opportunity to be with somebody to build him up. So when you look at that, you go, these are two really good scenarios for John Harbaugh. I'm still shocked. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still shocked. I get that the season ended the way it was, and I get that there was issues, but we were talking about a team that started 1-5 or 0-5, that they were ready to make the playoffs, almost something that's never ever been done. Doesn't that say something about your head coach? Doesn't that say something about the team buying into your head coach? I mean, this firing to me is ridiculous. It really is. I'm sorry. Like, we're not talking about a guy who's never got it done. We're not talking to a guy who lost the locker room. How did he lose the locker room? Lose the locker room? That's what Pete Carroll did out there in Vegas. Harbaugh didn't lose the locker room. That'd be interesting, man. I would see my boy Cordell Woodland, who I've had on here multiple times, that covers the Ravens out there in Baltimore. He's always really straight shooter, man. He's got the insight. So go give him a follow on Twitter. I guarantee you He's talking about this right now. I know Karita Parks is out there talking about it. She covers the Ravens for Bowie TV. She's a straight shooter as well. So a lot of these, it should be interesting to see little by little what comes out. But the other end of this is you gonna find a better coach than John Harbaugh? That's the thing, right? Like you should already think in your mind that you're willing to go and bring somebody in that maybe just might blow the doors off, right? You think about that, might blow the doors off, but that guy's not out there. And then you look at the league, and you got guys like Mike McDaniel, Dan Quinn, still keeping jobs, and John Harbaugh he gets canned. Doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense. Makes zero sense to me. Zero sense to me. But again, that's why I'm not an owner. I'm sitting here talking to you. Again, this is Tony Cutillo right here on the Tony Cutillo Show. Make sure you like and subscribe. Say it all the time, but like and subscribe. Let's build those subs up. Get involved in the conversation. Any questions you want to talk about? Who do you think? Where do you think John Harbaugh is going to go? What were the surprise firings to you when it comes? Again, yes, John Harbaugh been a head coach for 18 plus years and a winning season, David. An overall winning record, including the playoffs, of 194 and 124. Just crazy. All right, let's continue to go. Jonathan Gannon stinks, clueless. 15 and 36 and 3 seasons, he stinks. He had no business being a head coach. Zero. Okay, zero. Potential replacements that they say. Let me read what you say why he was fired. Okay. It says Gannon was hired to be part of toughen up Arizona's defense, and that really didn't happen. Remember, you got fire in your gut. How's that motivating somebody? This season's unit was 26th in EPA per play allowed, 27th in success rate allowed. Did they spend big money on guys like Josh Sweat? They also, have a hell of a Sam Buda Baker, but he still couldn't do naught with that, right? Again, they haven't taken a step forward despite 17. This is an interesting one. This just show you how Jonathan Gannon is clueless as a head coach. 17 of Gannon's 28 draft picks were on the defensive side of the ball, including 6 of 7 last spring, who he had insight into, and the team still stunk on the defensive side. It's hard to say the Cardinals are demonstrably better than they were when Gannon was hired. Just bad move. Bad move out there by the Bidwell family for Jonathan Gannon. Potential replacement, say, Vikings D coordinator Brian Flores, who I absolutely love. Cowboys OC and Clayton Adams. Defensive Rams coordinator Chris Shula, who I love. Love Clint Kubiak in Seattle as the OC. Broncos DC Vance Joseph, and former Cowboys and Packers head coach Mike McCarthy. That's an interesting one to keep your eye on. Does Mike McCarthy make the comeback this year? Does Mike McCarthy make the comeback this year? I'm curious. I am. I'm curious with that. We shall see. Let's go to Pete Carroll. This one surprised me a little bit too. But again, 3 and 14 in one season. You had the issues with Chip Kelly. And for me personally, as you can see, this team, the issue wasn't Chip. The issue, Chip got a raw deal. Now he's in Northwestern, but he still gets to collect a paycheck. Got paid again. Chip is a very, very, very good offensive coach. And you heard all the struggles afterwards saying that Pete didn't want to run what Chip wanted to run. And Pete put his stamp on it, and that team stunk, right? He preferred Geno Smith, right? They wanted to go out and get Geno Smith. He stunk this year, right? He stunk. And then you had the dispute with your number one pass rusher, one of the top 3 or 4 in the league, a superstar Max Crosby, being placed on injured reserve. None of it reflected well on Carroll. Was in over his head trying to fix a franchise where the rot goes much deeper. I mean, look, I think he was already knee deep in a pile of shit with that team. But the problem is he didn't help it because he's 74 years old. He's a former Super Bowl winner. I like Pete Carroll. He just looked like a guy where the game is just past him. Right? He wasn't willing to, I'm not going to say conform, but he wasn't really willing to pivot his game style and his coaching style to today's NFL, right? He just wasn't. He just wasn't, and I think that would ultimately be his downfall. Now, obviously, the replacements they talk about, the only difference one than the one above is defensive coordinator Jesse Minter from the Chargers, right? Everybody else kind of the same. Here's another one for me. I don't care what anybody says, right? Kevin Stefanski. We talked about this yesterday. I'm going to talk about it again. He was 46 and 58 in 6 seasons. I know you heard Stephen A on First Take talk about all these quarterbacks couldn't make one step. The quarterback stunk. They stunk. Every quarterback he had absolutely sucked. Okay? It did. Wasn't his fault. Right? They all stunk. What was he supposed to do? Right? You look at Kevin O'Connell, who's one hell of an offensive play caller, and you see what happened when his quarterback stunk and JJ McCarthy. He tried to do everything he could. The team still stunk. His stud receiver and Justin Jefferson just barely got 1,000 yards. That ain't Kevin O'Connell's fault. Kevin Stefanski got into a situation, okay? It's very simple, where he took a head coaching job. He got the bag. Terrible franchise, terrible owner, terrible outlook. So what is he supposed to do? And you talk about Baker Mayfield. It wasn't his idea to get rid of Baker Mayfield. I mean, come on, man. He didn't want Deshaun Watson. He was on record. He didn't want it. I mean, look, again, like you got to stop blaming the coach for bad ownership, right? You got to stop blaming. You got to start, or I say, stop blaming the coach for bad ownership. You just have to do it. The ownership sucks in Cleveland. Jimmy Haslam's a fraud. Okay, he's simple. He's a fraud. All right, and any coach goes there is in trouble. Says the Browns suffered their 4th losing season in 6 under Stefanski, as well as a 2nd straight year picking in the top 7 of the draft. The Deshaun Watson trade is partly on Stefanski. What? How? How? I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Sorry. Who recruited him in the spring of 2022. You need to give me the receipts for that one. I'm sorry. And for all Stefanski's offensive acumen, none of the 13 quarterbacks who started under his watch has proven to be a long-term solution. Did he pick all these quarterbacks? Are you serious? Like, it's such a bad vibe, man. Kevin Stefanski should be hired tomorrow. And guess what? Wherever he goes, he's going to have a much better opportunity. Let's think about it right now. Think about it right now. Any team that he goes to, he's going to have a hell of a better opportunity. Imagine if he goes to the Giants with Jackson Dart. Think about that. I mean, that would be a fantastic home for Kevin Stefanski. With that, get that running game going. If Cam Scatterboot could come back and be healthy, right? I mean, there's a lot of potential for Kevin Stefanski. I think Kevin Stefanski is an offensive guru. I do. And you're going to see it. It's going to be on a different team. It's going to be on a different team. Raheem Morris, 16 to 18, 2 seasons. Raheem Morris, listen. I think he's a good dude. Temple made, right? Local product out here in Philadelphia. But he's just not made to be a head coach, man. He's just not made to be a head coach. Right? I'm sorry. They regressed overall this season. I mean, so many different scenarios to where you had to scratch your head with Raheem Morris. And I know, listen, the GM goes they clean house over there. But all in on 2025, trading away the team's first round draft pick next spring. I mean, they're not set up in a great position. They talk about Matt Ryan, Matty Ice coming in. We'll see. But Raheem Morris, listen, that team should have been better than it was. And I think a lot of the ineptitude and a lot of the lack of success did have to do with the head coach in that situation. Brian Dable. This is an interesting one. 21, 41, and 1 in 3 full seasons in 10 games. Why he was fired? He won for Coach of the Year his first season in charge behind Danny Jones and Saquon. And then tons of injuries, underachievement. It says Doug a whole Dabble couldn't coach his way out of his handling of the overall operation. I mean, look, we saw it, right? He's a fire individual, but the in-game match with the whole concussion thing over Jackson Dart, I mean, it was too much, right? It was too much. Now a lot of that could have been boiled over for frustration over the last few years, and it just was just blowing up. He knew he was on the hot seat, but I think he's got a lot left. I do. I do think that he's one of those guys that could go somewhere as a head coach and kind of rewrite some of his sins over the last couple years, and be that guy you saw one Coach of the Year in his first season in charge. I think he gets the respect of the locker room. I think he does command, obviously that respect not only from ownership but from the players, so and around the league. So I do think he's well liked. So I think he will do very well wherever he goes. I do. I honestly do. I honestly do. Um, Brian Callahan, one full season in 6 games for Tennessee. I never got the hire, didn't understand it. 419. I know they really didn't have much out there in Tennessee. They played hard at times, but again, multiple times during games admitted he didn't know a rule. I mean, you looked at him on a sideline. I know, he just looked clueless at times, didn't understand what was going on. I mean, everybody talked about this guy was an offensive guru. I don't know about that, right? It didn't look like it to me. Although, rookie quarterback, right? You know, half half decent offensive line, a lot of mediocre receivers trying to make a name for themselves. Look, man, I don't know if you can put it all on, but I think it's just his decisions and his ineptitude in certain aspects of the game is what obviously buried him. So he's another guy that's going to go have to rebuild himself. Right? I definitely going to be rebuild himself. Now, on the hot seat, next is Todd Bowles. Is he going to be back? Right? I think a lot of the spin on Todd Bowles was the way he lost his composure a little bit. I think he was frustrated. He challenged his players. I think they had a rough year in Tampa with injuries. Obviously, they expected a little more. But I don't know, man. I think this was a one of those scenarios where we could go back to the top of the show where we talked about Andy Reid, and we saw it with Doug Peterson. Sometimes when you start to lose the locker room and you lose the support, it shows. And I think that is what happened with Todd Bowles. So I'd be interested to see what happens. I would think that they look they look for a change, in my opinion. I definitely think they would be looking for a change for sure. Commanders part ways with Cliff Kingsbury and their OC and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. Listen, they saved Dan Quinn's job, I guess, right? I mean, interesting if you ask me. Lions fire offense coordinator John Morton, which I think we all knew was inevitable. Dan Campbell was taking over the play calling abilities or duties afterwards when he didn't like it. I mean, I'll say this too. It's not easy to replace Ben Johnson, right? You just automatically assume that whoever takes over that helm is going to be an offensive guru like Ben Johnson. That's just never not the case, right? It's just that was just a bad idiom right there. Never not. That's never the case, right? It's just not. So I think that ship sailed. I think they became very anxious, and then when we saw Dan Campbell take over the offensive play calling duties, got a little different right there. Got a little different right there. And I am frozen right now. See if I can get back on here. Um, Let's see if we can get back on here. Uh-oh. We have Houston. We have a problem. Let's see. See if we can get this back on. Disconnect. All right. We got problems here, so we're gonna talk like this. I guess I'm gonna have to do this without a camera because we're not picking it up. Let's see. Let's see this. Hold on. The love of technology, everybody. The love of technology. There we go. Look, we're back. We're back. Look at that. Every now and then, man, technical difficulties, man. Technical difficulties. That was weird. That was really, really weird, man. Interesting. Interesting. Um, so let's get back. It got me all messed up there for a second because you start talking and everything goes away and you're frozen and it's just not a cool thing, man. It's not a cool thing. It happens, right? It happens. Um, let's look at some of these potential replacements. And let's see if we could talk about who we think possibly could be going where, or at least is a really, really good candidate for a head coaching job. So let's look at people that we talked about up on the top. Right now, we look at guys like Brian Flores, who I think is going to absolutely kill it once he becomes a head coach again. I think he got a raw deal out there in Miami, another terrible franchise, bad ownership, no support. And again, it was his first time. You know, a lot of these guys from the defensive side, if you notice, they always have to rebuild themselves and then go back because they learn. And I think Brian Flores has shown this year that he's ready. Flores is definitely ready, in my opinion. I think he's going to be one hell of a coach. Um, now, Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula is going to be an interesting one. I think Chris Shula could be one of those guys that could be a very, very sneaky hire. And the reason why I say that is because even though he's a defensive coordinator, he's working under one of the best offensive minds in the game in Sean McVay. So not only do you have to scout against that offensive system as a defensive coordinator in practice, but now you allow yourself to, kind of sponge in these nuggets and get this understanding, of how to run an actual offense of that caliber. And I think it kind of rubs off on you. So I do think that Chris Shula could be a very, very interesting hire. I in the right situation. I do. I think that's one of the underrated names, right? I think we already know what we can expect from, offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. I mean, he's done his due diligence from the offensive side. I think he's ready to get his opportunity. I think Kubiak is I don't think he's sneaky. Like I think Shul is sneaky because he's a DC that everybody's just going to think defensive coach. But I think working with Sean McVay for the last few years allows him to really start to understand the offense side of the ball. And I think he'll be a lot better than people are going to give him credit for, which is why I say, look, at the end of the day, this is a guy that might go under the radar. Now, a guy that doesn't go under the radar to me is Clint Kubiak. And obviously, he has the lineage of his dad with Gary Kubiak. But I think, in this day and age, the offensive coaches, as long as they can handle, all the extracurriculars of a head coach, understand, command the respect of a locker room, which you've already done if you called multiple offenses in different settings that have been successful and have stories about them. I think Clint Kubiak could be a guy, in that Kyle Shanahan type role. I do. I know a lot of people might think. I've heard some people say like Mike McDaniel. I totally disagree. I don't think that you're going to see Clint Kubiak fail. I don't. I don't think he's Cliff Kingsbury. I don't. I think he's an OC that gets it. I think more along the lines of Kyle Shanahan, Ben Johnson. I think that's Clint Kubiak's role. I think looking at Ben Johnson now as a newer breed head coach, I think you can really take Kyle Shanahan, who's been a veteran now, and you take Ben Johnson, pull them together, and I do think they're the comparisons that you have for Clint Kubiak. I think Clint Kubiak's on a trajectory. The only problem though is with some of these guys, somebody's going to have to take that Browns job, and somebody, and that job stinks. Somebody's going to have to take that Browns job, and it's going to be a work in progress. So that's going to be the interesting part. Who takes the Browns job, right? Let's go through a couple more. Vance Joseph. Listen, I like Vance. I think Vance is a lifer for a DC defensive coordinator. I don't think Joseph has enough to be a head coach anymore. I think that ship has sailed. I know he tried, didn't work out, and comes back. Obviously, didn't work out in Denver, right? I think he started was in Arizona, but it didn't work out in Denver, and now he's the DC in Denver. Again, I don't think he has it, in my opinion. I think he should just be that defensive coordinator, go in, get that paycheck, continue to just run roughshod on everybody, and just again stay the path. That again, that's just my opinion. Everybody's different. That's just my opinion. I think Vance Joseph is different to me than Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores, in his next shot is going to flourish. I just don't think it's going to be Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph. But to bring it back, man, John Harbaugh, his exit sparks the NFL coaching carousel. Still shocked. Like I said, I'm still absolutely shocked that Harbaugh was just said, "See ya." Right? I am. I'm extremely shocked. I thought that he should have gotten again. He should have gotten a little more leniency based on his track record. Titans reportedly will interview ex Cowboys coach Jason Garrett for the head coaching opportunity. Interesting. Like, if I'm Jason Garrett, just collect your money. Keep doing your TikToks for Sunday night football, Sunday, football in America, whatever it is. Like, honestly, why mess with it, Jason? Why mess with it? But I get it. That desire, right? It burns up in you, right? Listen, he is a winning record, but he hasn't coached since 2001. So but I the one thing about him is you listen to a lot of his uh, you know of his breakdowns and his analysis, and he still got it, right? Jason Garrett still got it. It's never left. So I think Jason Garrett will be different this time around. I mean, he was always a winning record, right? But I just think he'll be different than some of the other guys you see come out of the booth and go in, right? Now Clint Kubiak, who we talked about, is already getting requests from multiple teams: Giants, Cardinals, Vegas, Atlanta. And why not? Right? Why not? So again, his team's got the number one seed, right? So this is one of those scenarios where let all that play out first, and then, but it's always the interesting part, So all these teams are going to hold out. Now, if you just look at the Giants, the Cardinals, the Vegas Raiders, and the Atlanta Falcons, I don't know, man. For me, probably Atlanta or the Giants, because at least Arthur Blank as an owner will give you the opportunity, and you go right in there with guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson, right? So I do like that. I think Arizona is a complete shit show and a mess. Vegas right now is a complete shit show and a mess. We don't know what's going to happen with them. So unfortunately, though, it seems like you're going to get a guy like a Kubiak that's going to have to take one of those lower tier jobs, depending on the way everything else pulls out with Harbaugh and Stefanski. So Going to be very, very interesting over these next couple weeks, man. We're gonna continue to play it out, but we're gonna continue to talk about it right here on the Tony Cotillo Show. So make sure you follow the Tony Cotillo Show at Tony Cotillo Show. Make sure you get involved with all the post games, especially for the Sixers. No post game tomorrow. I will actually be at the game live. So if you're going to be at the game at the Xfinity Center, reach out, man. Shoot me a DM, man. Love to hook up. I'll be there with my son. We'll be having a good time. We'll get down there a little early, like we always do. Try to fight traffic a little bit, but hopefully see a Sixers rebound win. But this NFL coaching carousel is going to be crazy over the next couple weeks. I should say days, couple weeks, right? As everything plays out, we got a big NFL playoff weekend coming up. Can't wait. We will drop possibly probably Friday as we get closer to I know we got a huge weekend, right, with the games all 3 days, but try to drop some bets in, some DFS plays, some value plays. Should be interesting, should be fun. Gonna do a couple more episodes, when it comes to fantasy football, talking about things that worked out last year, some of my takes, some other takes that kind of, got spoiled a little bit. But as we end this, I want to give a quick little preview to something. So I want to bring back the one-on-one interviews here on the Tony Cotillo Show. Now, I love the one-on-one interviews because I don't want just the one-on-one interviews where you're just talking a bunch of nonsense. What I want to do is two things. I want, number one, authenticity. So if you're watching this stream, if you're watching this show, if you're a follower of the Tony Cotillo Show, and you have a story to tell, what inside the industry, inside, as you've grown to where you're at, maybe you've been let go from a specific network, maybe something happened that you did not foresee, and you want to talk about it. And this isn't talk about to bury somebody. What it is to talk about so we can raise awareness, right? Because I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people out there in this industry that have got completely bamboozled, right? And there's also a lot of people in this industry that have really got their game elevated to another level from hard work and success. And I want to highlight both of them. But I think the problem is we always highlight all these success stories all the time, and people are afraid to talk about what may have happened somewhere else. Right. What may have happened because they're afraid of burning bridges. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the media industry, especially sports media industry. Everybody has their own connections and they don't want to let you into their connections because this guy might talk to this guy or this girl might talk to this guy. And, I don't want him or her to get their connection and I want them to be. It's ridiculous. It's like I'm too old for that shit, man. I'm 47 years old. I'm too old for it. All I want to do is come in here and talk sports. That's it. I want to talk sports. I want to have debates. I want to have a good time. Okay. I want to give out some picks, give out some plays, like do it all. Have a little fun. But I know people personally that have completely been shell shocked. They thought they had their dream job at one time and they were sold a bag of goods and that bag got ripped from right out from under them and they didn't expect it. And what I do the Fighting for Overtime podcast. Make sure you go follow the Fighting for Overtime podcast. All about youth sports, where I bring on former athletes, collegiate athletes, high school athletes, collegiate coaches, high school coaches, parents that talk about, unfortunately, the scenarios that a lot of people aren't giving you, right? The inside. And it's not, again, this isn't about burying people. What it is it's about telling a story to raise awareness. So what I want to do is I want to raise the awareness level of everybody out there in the sports media industry, whether it be podcasting, whether it be radio, whether it be streaming, whatever it is. Okay. And I already have one lined up. Okay. I can't wait. I already got one lined up. Somebody who I know personally that was given their dream job. That's what they worked their ass off for and got screwed and he's here to tell it. And it's not about telling a story so he can run people down or I can highlight people. What it is people need to be real, man. Let's stop hiding everything. Let's throw it out there. Let's raise awareness. And again, it's because it is going to happen to people. And I'm not saying anybody directly, did it as a direct action, but it's raising awareness of what could happen. This could happen. So realize it, right? When you give up everything and then it's taken away from you for no reason, right? For no reason, just be ready to pivot and to try again somewhere else, right? But unfortunately, those scenarios happen. And I think if we can raise awareness, I think it'll help, whether it be the current generation, the future generation coming up throughout this industry, that a lot of them are obviously they I think they realize by now because you see so many people changing networks and radio stations, and you see how cutthroat the business is. It really is. People stab you in the back in a second. In a second. It's a shame, man. It's an absolute shame. But what I want to do is I just want to raise awareness. So again, if you have a story, if you would like to tell a success story about how you got to, because that's the other side of it too, though, how much work and sacrifice that you have to do. I mean, I've talked about this with numerous people, the sacrifices that you have to make and that I'm not willing to make at times, and I wasn't willing to make. And I am so glad I wasn't. Okay, because I got to where I wanted to be. I still want to be at another spot right now. We'll get there one day, but I'm not willing to give up my entire life to get there. I'm just not. It's too much of a volatile industry. I'm just not doing it. Okay, but there are people that do it, and hats off to them. But I think that when they do make it, it's a good story to tell, man. Like, think about it. Like, where did you start? Where did you have to go? Right? Where did you have to travel to? I've sat down with multiple people that wanted to get into sports media. Okay. And again, I know I'm not, the celebrity star and stuff like that, but I've been around this business in several different areas for 15 to 20 years. And even if I wasn't doing it, I was involved with people that were doing it and understood it. So when I've been asked by a couple of people, hey, my son or my daughter wants to get into sports media, can you give them some advice? Right. And the first thing I tell them, right, when they go, what are you thinking? I go, are you ready to move? And they go, what? I said, are you ready to move? Because there's no opportunities here in Philadelphia. Like I'm from outside of Philadelphia, but I talk Philly sports. But again, you see the hashtag not just Philly. We talk about everything, right? But we do talk Philly sports. And the first thing I say is there's no jobs for you here. There's not. Not what you want to do. You talk about so many different people. You find out where they went to. Debbie Caney told a story the other night where her first coverage was in Idaho, right? You look at people like Alexa Ross, who is Temple made. Well, she's go to Buffalo, Indianapolis, right? You talk about Lindsay Mopert, who's now a PHL 17 back home. Where'd she go? She went out to Buffalo, right? And I'm just saying that because that's real. Be ready to do that. So I want to tell the stories. I want to tell success stories. So if you would like to be considered, right, or know somebody would like to be considered, man, just let me know, man. Hit me up. Okay, give me a DM. Follow me on Twitter at Tony Cutillo Show. It's DM the show. Very, very simple. And let me know. Let me know what story you have, positive and negatively, and let's talk about it. All right, let's get it out there so we can raise awareness and we can help the current and next generation, and we can stop hiding behind computers, and we can just give everybody out real information, nothing that's fabricated, and real success stories as well. So as always, Tony Cutillo right here. Sorry for the technical difficulties about 20 minutes ago where we lost the camera. It happens. We got it back, though. We still had sound and still finished out 45 minutes strong. Everybody, as always, stay safe and stay healthy. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll catch you back here